How's it going, everybody? This is Rob Novakast back with another video, and with this one, it's on we're going to be doing a review above all. But to be perfectly honest, for some reason I thought I did a review of this movie, but apparently I didn't. So we are going to get right into it because honestly, it's an interesting one for me. And especially with it being kind of loosely being based on real life events, it's one that, to a certain degree, I thought I had already done or would have done already. But here we go. In this video, we'll be reviewing the Zodiac, or just Zodiac, which was directed by David Fincher, written by Jason Vanderbilt, and Robert Graysmith, which is the writer of the book. So to an extent, this is loosely based on history that involves the situations or the events that occurred during the, I believe the 1960s and 1980s that involved the serial killer known as the Zodiac. And again, when it comes down to this particular film, as well as it following, real life events, it's interesting to say the least, especially with the situation of the serial killer itself as well. So without further delay, why don't we go ahead and get right into it, giving our quick responses as well as our quick points as to what we feel about the movie Zodiac. So like I said before, when it comes down to the story told within this film, it's more so loosely based on the events that occurred way back in the 60s and 80s involving the Zodiac killer. And in the way that it's presented, or at least the way it's structured, it's actually done really well. Bit by bit on what has happened with several key components or characters or individuals that were involved or end up getting involved in this situation and involving the Zodiac, as well as going over a few of the things that have happened during those times trying to hunt down the Zodiac killer, especially when it comes down to the situations of the police having to come up with evidence to catch the individuals who weren't police involved, and some of the situations involving the letters, as well as one particular moment where he calls a talk show in order to get his, to speak his mind, so to speak. All in all, it is done in a really, again, well-structured way that I will say that when it comes to story, it is again, based on or loosely based on real events, is done particularly well. So in this situation of characters, we had quite the list of good actors that played a variety of the different characters that take place in this story. Jack Gyllenhaal playing Robert Graysmith, basically, being the one, at first being the cartoonist, becoming the person who writes the book, as well as doing the investigation, or off the record investigation when hunting down the Zodiac, or helping to hunt down the Zodiac. Robert Downey Jr. playing Paul Avery, the very brash and kind of full of himself journalist, though to an extent I kind of feel like that's a lot of what we've seen with his acting. Mark Ruffalo, Inspector David Toski, hopefully I said that name correctly, who is the lead investigator of the Zodiac killings or Zodiac investigation, and many others. In fact, John Carroll Lynch, who plays Arthur Lee Allen, also kind of playing a the big role as the person who was investigated as the Zodiac killer. All in all, each individual who plays their role does an exceptionally good job in what characters they play as. Again, because especially since at this point it is loosely based on what real events have occurred. So I'm putting these two categories together, effects and movies, or effects and music, because there's not much to talk about when it comes to these two with this particular film, unless if I can count the fact that when it comes down to how much it would probably cost to get a lot of particular, I guess if anything, particular items or objects, furniture, etc., or clothing that would that was I guess present during the 60s and 80s. Then I will count that as an effect, because when it comes down to it, I mean, with it again being loosely based, and I know people might get irritated for me calling it just loosely based. It is a film. They're gonna exaggerate here or there, but all in all, it is based on reality, or loosely based on reality. And to an extent, there was nothing that needed to be kind of embellished when it comes down to or at least in the use of effects, or creating something that wasn't real to a certain degree, at least as far as I know. But all in all, the movie itself looks amazing, especially when, again, them using or coming up with the clothing or for our characters, as well as a variety of different, and let's say, for instance, again, furniture and other memorabilia that would be in the 60s and 80s. By the way, I think one of my favorites had to be the Coke machine that we see in the workplace of the killer. All in all, it's really cool to see stuff like that. And as for music, they use a couple of classic rock music that honestly was really good, a really good touch when it comes down to music used. There is a few small scores, but all in all, it was something that I didn't really think about. But I won't hold that against the movie, because all in all, my main focus again was the fact that it was based on the story itself, as well as the characters or actors that play the characters. Now, I will say that when it comes down to this situation too, I will say that less was probably better in this instance, especially when it comes down to music, instead of over saturating the film with music itself. So all in all, less is better in this case, especially when it comes down to effect. So all in all, they did really good, and I approve that. All right, so we're on to final thoughts of this movie, or this review. Now, I should say that I will say that, above all, this movie is probably an interesting case for me, because honestly, it is one of those films that, strangely enough, I do enjoy. Mostly for the fact that they are close to, or try to stay true to, the story itself as much as possible, because again, with it being within what took years to deal with, especially when it comes to this murder case, as well as what is described in the book, could quite possibly can only be put into an hour and a half movie. So how they structure it in story is done really well. Actors that play their roles do an excellent job. And unfortunately, two of my categories had to be merged into one, because unfortunately, there is not much to talk about when it comes down to what we see in that of effects and music. So, all in all, when it comes down to it, this is an interesting film. And I kind of wish that I could have talked about a little bit more when it comes down to, again, some of the other stuff. Or if there was more to some of the other things. But I guess if looking at the movie itself, you have to really focus on who is playing their roles as well as the story that is being told. Not the effects nor the music. Because at this point, that stuff doesn't really matter compared to the main aspects. Again, the story and characters. So, with that being said, for a final verdict, and I don't want to push it too high, because, and I kind of feel like I know that some people are probably thinking that I'm going to do that, but I'm not. As much as I want to, I kind of feel like that there should have been more to this movie. If anything, something I didn't talk about in the story segment is that I kind of wish that this was a little bit longer so we can get more details. But all in all, we got what we got. So I think if anything, what I'm going to do is final verdict for Zodiac, which was released in 2007, a 8 out of 10. I enjoy the story. I enjoy the actors that play in this particular film. In fact, it's funny because, most of them are in, or at least a couple of them are in Marvel films together. I can't say anything about effects as well as anything about music, which is unfortunate because there's quite a few tracks that are played when it comes to rock or other forms of music, but all in all, there's not much to talk about with that one. And I did say that I wasn't going to, kind of set it up where that was something that I won't hold against the film. And I'm not. But all in all, there's not much I can really talk about. But I do say that when it comes to story, there should have been more. But anyway, the Zodiac, 8 out of 10. My final verdict for this movie. And there it is, guys, my review of Zodiac. Again, I'm surprised that I haven't touched upon this film yet, or at least when it comes down to, videos or movie reviews. I haven't touched on this sooner, but it was one of those films that I had to kind of talk about because it is one that I, on occasion, watch because it is intriguing to me. But all in all, that was my review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description down below, as well as check out our daily content and the weekly podcast. With that being said, this is Rob Novakast signing off. Have a good one. Take care. And I will see you guys in the next video.
We will feel